Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nat and and I want to welcome you to a very different video I decided to work on. I thought of this for a couple days in a row, and I thought I would talk about something I usually don't talk about. My thought process for stories that I come up with. Uh, the the very first story I've written in a long time, and by God, I mean a long time, because about 5 years ago, I stopped writing fan fiction. I used to have an old fanfiction account that exists somewhere on fanfiction.net. I don't remember the name. I don't remember the contents of my stories, nor do I remember what they were about. But, just a few months earlier this year, I had decided to start back up writing again. Reason being was because I had some thoughts and I had some ideas for once. See, my thought process is not a usually a good thing or a strange thing. My thought process is a little complicated. Like, my ideas can come from anything, anywhere, anytime, and can be about anything. Uh, as, as I want to cover some of my stories having the strange things that they are. One of the first stories I wrote this year, it would be on fanfiction, and also showing up on here on my story dot today thing. My story is an app that you can get on your cell phone. I thought, let's see if I can access it from my computer, and thankfully I can, because it's a bit odd. Now, anyway, talking back to one of my first stories that I made earlier this year. The first story I made earlier this year, as you can see chronologically of this list of stories I've written, this one only has 3 chapters. Why? Because I wrote the other chapters on another app and saved them onto my cell phone. The story, hang on a sec, let me pull it up. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so the one I wanted to talk about is one of the first ones I wrote on this thing. Well, not according to this setting. These two, this one's not a very good story, and this one, well, this was just a one shot I made completely off the rails, but doesn't matter. The one I want to talk about is my very first story I wrote earlier this year. This one I made based off of a roleplay idea that came together by me and a friend. We had worked on it for about several months. I had started brainstorming ideas for it, and Lord and behold, I came up with this story closely similar to what happens in the fan fiction that we did. It's not all there. A lot of it I made up. A lot of it came out of nowhere, and a lot of it is something I just put together. Because the roleplay we did never finished. We never finished it, but anyway, this is the story of an OC character that I made especially for this So as it says, Lacey Nesmith, just your average waitress in a small town south of Magnolia. What happens when a certain dragon slayer drops in her workplace claiming she looks like someone he knows? But you can skip over the shipping because I didn't really do anything for it. I just wrote it straight through as thoroughly as I could. This story's got a couple of reviews, a lot of faves and a lot of falls. I updated it back in April, being finished just a little. I published it back in March and I finished it April with 17 chapters and a little over 50,000 words. And this is not my longest story to date. That story has to be my secondary story, which I will show up on this other one. When cards and magic collide. Cards and magic collide. Like, see, most of the chapters aren't here. So let's go back to this. When Cards and Magic Collide was a story idea I came up with after watching various YouTube various anime openings that gave me ideas for this concept. If you wanted to say this is a sequel to Coming Together, it is technically a sequel. It is it's not a very stuck together sequel though, because it goes over a lot of different things, such as alternate dimensions, alternate timelines within those dimensions, and so on and so forth, and separate worlds and such. That makes it a little bit more confusing and less straightforward than the story that came before it. The reason I say this is basically a sequel is because this story takes place 6 months after the end of Coming Together, where it's still all the same characters, including my OC character, but a majority of the characters aren't even involved in the story, including my OC character. This is a very interesting story that I came up with. This is a Yu-Gi-Oh! And fairy tale crossover story that I came up with myself that I thought was just a little bit interesting. I ended it with over 20 chapters, over 70,000 words, and this one is probably my most highly praised story on Fanfiction, receiving 12 views, 15 faves, and 16 follows. I managed to finish this in a little over 4 months, starting back in March 28th and finishing it off in May. This was a very unique story that I came up with, one I still enjoy the most having written, because it took me the most longest to come up with, because a lot of different things went into the story. It was a very interesting story that I actually came up with. When a malfunctioning invention of Kaiba's causes Yugi, Yami, Joey, and Joey to be dumped in a world filled with magic, guilds, and danger, will they be able to return home? What's the reason they're here in Fior? I will say that, according to a lot of the comments I got, I didn't fully utilize one aspect of the thing that I came up with in the story. I didn't utilize Yugi, Yami, Joey, and of course Kaiba using their dual monster cars very much. I didn't utilize it as much as I should have. it's only utilized like a few times in the story, and it's not to the point where it's spectacular as much, but it is a bit interesting. But the whole thing is very interesting, and I also came up with the creation of a fan concept that someone gave me to create a shipping between Wendy and Yugi, which honestly, going in when I was first going into the story, I didn't even have the slightest idea of doing shipping when I was making this. So getting it done like that, it was not on the top tier list, but it ended up coming together just fine anyway as the story went on. Uh, I will say this is one of the more emotional stories I've ever written because of some of the stuff going on. It moved me to tears. It was one of the stories that I wrote so powerfully and so strongly about to the point that I had tears just writing it all together. And in some of the chapters, I feature the lyrics of several anime songs that fit with what's going on in the story or what's going on in the chapters. And some of it is very emotional. Some of it is just there for effect or for like background display, like what you would see in the anime if there was a battle going on. There'd be a lot of music in the background, basically just like that. But it's very interesting story, and one of the more ones I'm more proud of than a lot of my other stuff. Okay, the next one I want to talk about. Let's see. Next one I want to talk about is this one, Haunted. This one I came up with after watching a little bit on a repeat of a AMV on YouTube about Natsu Lucy and a character from the fairy tale series. This is very the summary for this does not set up the story at all. It's very complicated, and this is the story where I fully realized the shipping I came up with for Yugi and Wendy. I really went into it with this. This story is not finished. It updated it of June 14th, and I have not worked on it since. This has got 7 chapters, 15 over 15,000 words. It's only got a couple of reviews, faves, and follows because I did not do my hardest with this. This is more of a high school setting, but the high school setting is a little complicated to say the least. Instead of Because of this being a Yu-Gi-Oh! And a fairy tale crossover once again, I went a little deeper with what was going on with the characters and everything. I basically did two joining situations here. Basically, you have the magic users from a fairy tale, and then you got the characters like Yugi, Joey, Atem, and Jaden. You each got one of them possessing an ability. Basically, what I mean by ability is basically they would have like something you would sort of find like in X-Men. I guess if you want to go as closely as possible to it, that would basically what it would be. I gave it a word. I don't remember what word I used. I think I just used ability for it. And that's basically how I did it. And what I did here was for the very first chapter, I did connections and summaries. This is basically telling basically everything they needed to know about several of the main characters and the more necessary ones that were needed for the story. As I wrote each chapter, I added slightly more information about the other characters and their classmates and teachers, and the information about their powers and what abilities they had. I basically did it at the beginning of every chapter. For like this one, I wrote about Natsu and Wendy. I wrote about Lucy. I wrote about Yugi, Jaden, and Tim, and Joey, and of course Levy. I wrote all about them in detail, getting a slight summary of what their characters were like for this story and their connections to each other. That's how detailed I went for this. And but here was the full version of the summary. I could not write up on the actual summary for the story because it did not fit all the way through. So the true summary of this story is Natsu and Wendy are the brand new students at Magnolia High. Everyone tells them to stay away from Yugi and Lucy. But why? What's the reason? Yugi and Lucy were the most popular in their grades until an accident occurred and left their lives in shambles. Can the two new students lift them out of the dark? And see, when I wrote this, I couldn't figure out how to get one thing of the story right, and that was the main problem of the story, being the accident that happens in the story that ruins their lives. I finally was able to figure it out after what the accident would have been to leave them in shambles. And I don't know if anyone's gonna want to read this because it's not really one of my best ones. I'm literally stuck because I can't figure out how to go forward from them visiting someone in the hospital to having a normal conversation with their neighbors across the street. So it was basically very hard for me to figure out where to go from this. I had several ideas on what was going to happen next. I was going to have another side character have the ability of being able to see if small stagnant events in the future of something that was going to happen, and being also one of the catalysts to prevent it. But I couldn't figure out how to get the ball going on it, nor did I know how to get the ball going on another incident that was supposed to happen in the story. And in the story, I might as well say what I was going to do because I can't figure out how to write it into it. In the story, I was going to have an event where the bullies that have been tormenting Yugi and Lucy and was making it to where they were targeting Yugi's adopted brother Jaden, and make it to where he is kidnapped and almost killed. But this was to result in the prevention of him dying was for one of the characters, one of the target characters, to basically jump off the roof of the school building, in which said character, one of the side characters with the premonition ability, was to be able to prevent it from happening. To prevent the incident from happening. And I couldn't figure out how to go forward with writing this out in detail because, let's face it, this was some of the craziest shit I was thinking of. And I have written a lot of crazy shit in some of my stories. I will admit that. Some of my stories, they don't sound impressive, but the crazy twist I do with them make it insane. I've heard it several times from several of my friends who read my shit. They're like, dude, you end your chapters with freaking crazy shit happening. Do you know that? And like, yes, I do. I do it intentionally. That's how you get it. That's how you get it done and make people read. But yeah, that was a good one. But the newest thing I decided to start trying to do is basically write more uh gay relationships into my stories. The first one I tried doing it with was in cards when Cards and Magic Collide. I made little snippets here and there towards the end of the story of Joey and Kaiba having a possible relationship. It wasn't very much though, and it wasn't uh totally fleshed out. That was saved for my one shot, which is based on a song that I listened to. And if you know this song, you know what this is. Shut Up and Kiss Me. This is a song I listened to that because at the time I was looking for stories where they would have it. I was tired of the stories that they were doing for puzzle shipping where it was just them being flirty or being nice to each other all the time. I wanted one made where they would actually one kind of hated the other, one kind of was in love with the other. So that's basically what I wrote this story for. This is a story I wrote after hearing that song "Shut Up and Kiss Me." I forgot the artist's name. You can look it up and tell me if you heard of it. This is just a one-shot story I made with over 6,000 words. Uh, only a couple, only a couple actually looked at shit, and I published it on May 19th. Uh, this was this, this was my first ever story doing two things. One, a complete gay relationship. I am as much as I've read yaoi and as much as I've read on these fan-made shippings that they do for Yu-Gi-Oh, I am still not 100% sure of how to write gay relationships right. Because let's get this straight, people. I am not gay. I am bisexual, and I still don't know how to write this shit straight. It's a bad pun, but yes. And two, this was also my first time reading anything about drag queens. I was not very smart in this department. I'm not very sure in this department. I wrote it as a complete and utter joke because I thought it kind of fit for the premise. Uh, Now here's the summary for the story. Yami's secretly a drag queen known as Phantasma. Yugi ends up saving her. Now Yami's head over heels in love with him. Will Yugi cave, or is this doomed to be a love-hate relationship? It's not that good. I will put this out there right now. It's not that good. I did not write it to be good. I had low expectations writing it. I had low expectations of finishing it. And the ending is sort of trash. So it's not one of my good ones. It is pretty funny the way I've written it because I basically made Yami uh a complete spazoid of being in love with Yugi, and it is funny, especially if you imagine him saying it in his English voice. If you imagine him saying it in his English voice, it gets even funnier. And that's how I did it. That's how I wrote this. Is imagining him saying this in his English voice. And that's what made the ball for the funny humor just roll with this damn thing. Other than that, it is complete trash, and I do not recommend it as one of my stories because it is not that good. My rating for this one, it was trash. But that's not even compared to some of my other stuff. Let's see. For my other one, it's back on my story. The other one I wrote, I decided this one, of course, you guys know I'm related to Exorcist. You guys heard me reading some of the chapters, and it's a good story. I don't know exactly how I came up with this idea. I thought since the whole thing with Yugi being connected with the puzzle was kind of a supernatural-esque scenario. It was like, well, what if you mix that with actual ghosts and a haunted school and ghosts that will scare the living shit out of you for no apparent reason? I just thought, this sounds pretty good. It sounded really good. I made it really good. I made some really horrible twists when I did it. And I'm still writing it. I literally just put up chapter 15 just tonight, doing a couple sentences, finally working back on it again after being not touching it for several months. Like, clearly. This is the stuff I got based on this one. This has got 1 review, 4 faves, 5 follows, and it was posted back in April 21st and updated in June 16th. Well, you see how badly poor it is seen on fanfiction, but if you go back to my first video reading it on Wattpad, it is way more popular over there. And that is because on fanfiction, there is not any Toilet Bound Hanako-kun fanfictions on this website. They are all on Wattpad. There is over dozens upon dozens of stories on Wattpad, and they're all pretty high praised. That's why this story is more popular over there than on here, with with over 46,000 words and 14 chapters so far, and it's not even finished. It is still not one of my most worded stories, but it's still one of my good stories, and one of the ones I still enjoy to this day. Now, talking about some of my other stories, some of these are just strictly made for Wattpad. Some of these are pretty interesting as well. My most interesting one is Snow Fairy, but let me bring up my Wattpad to show you. Okay, so now here you see the seasons of the other kind of stories that I have on here. 2 of these stories did not make it onto my other account. This one is one I wrote on here several years ago. It was not that interesting. This is a story I basically made up. This is a story I wrote based off of a Toilet Bound Hanako-kun story that I read, except I made it based around fairy tale. This is an interesting story that I did. Let's see. See, this was supposed to be a continuation story. I just left it as is. I don't know if I wanted to make it more. Like, this is let me go back to the summary. There we go. There's story details. Okay. The Toji Matsuri, a one-night event every winter. It brings people together. Brought Lucy, a girl south of Magnolia, to Minatsu, a boy living in Magnolia, to meet. This year and every year next they'll meet. It wasn't a very good summary. I couldn't really describe it because the story itself is very simplistic and very normal. The story was supposed to be. I didn't do very well for the story because I didn't know how to expand it from the very first chapter I wrote on it. It was supposed to be a chapter that took place every fall or every winter when the Toji Matsuri event happened, which is basically a winter festival sort of thing. It's a winter festival, and every year they would meet, and basically after a few years they would end up falling in love. But I didn't write it good enough for that, so I left it as is and left it as just the one chapter because I didn't feel like writing it differently. Well, this one, this chit chat and laughs is basically a text thing. I made it a text story because, well, I was writing, and ideas pop in your head when you write shit. This one, again, only has one story. I wrote it to basically have more than one. Well, I made it sound like it had more than one. Because, let's face it, the text stories are always pretty funny. And since this is here, I might as well let you guys read it because this is pretty funny stuff I wrote for it. At least I thought it was funny at the time. See, I was wanting to. See, I wanted to branch it out more, so I wrote that at the top, but I never got around to do it because the second chapter I had wanted to write involving the guys at the Cypher dorm finding a used condom. I did not know how to proceed afterwards. So, yeah, that idea is trashed. It was a terrible idea to begin with, and I never thought it would go anywhere either way. So, let's see. I thought I completely made this story up on my brain, so let's go ahead and read it. And I will say that this is one story that even my mother found funny. She did not need to know the characters. She did not need to know what was going on. She just needed to read it and say, "Oh yeah, this is pretty funny." Because if you put anyone in the mix of this, you could basically make anyone be these characters, except you always need someone to be the dick, and that's always Kaiba. So I'm gonna read this for you guys. Yugi, hey, Joey, did you remember the homework from last night? The time was 6:03 a.m. Joey, we had homework. I thought we had a substitute yesterday. Yugi, there's still always homework, Joey. Did you do it or not? Joey, I don't even have my school book. What do you think? Yugi, what did you do with your book? Joey, dog ate it. Yugi, what dog? Joey, you don't even have a pet. Joey, my neighbor's dog. Yugi, Joey, your neighbor is a blind 56-year-old woman. Now, again, what dog? My other neighbor. Joey, there's no dogs in your neighborhood. Again, what dog? Joey, I was on my way home. Joey, I was with you. What dog? Tristan ate my book. Why would he do that? Kaiba dared him to be more of a dog than I am, so Tristan tore up and ate 10 pages of my book. There was money involved, wasn't there? Fuck yeah. How much? $50 if you couldn't eat half the book. And you won? Fuck yes. Best $50 I ever won in my life. If the teachers ask, I got attacked by a Rottweiler and used my book to defend myself. Fine, but next time there's a bet, let me in on it. Alright, see you at school. Yugi texts Tristan. Hey Tristan. Morning, Yugi. What's up? Why'd you tear up Joey's schoolbook? Don't ask. Damn that Kaiba. And waving his wallet around in my face. God, you're such a whore for money. I did this out of left field. I'm sorry. Better to be a whore for money. Honestly, as long as it doesn't get around, I'll be fine. 10 hours later after school. Joey, I'm going to murder you. What'd I do, you jerk? Kaiba told me you hung a picture of me eating your schoolbook in the classroom. Everyone's calling me Chewbacca. I came up with that joke. It is so bad. That's a good one. So you did do it. Oh hell no, I'm not a slime ball. Suckers, I took the picture. Kaiba, you ass. Oh my lord, Kaiba, that was awesome. Next time I'll bring a squeaky toy for Poochie over there. You're both dead to me. Rather be dead to you than be known as Chewbacca. No, Yugi, how could you betray me? You looked way too into destroying Joey's schoolbook. You look like a lion that just ripped the guts out of a zebra. This is a lot of laughing. I love this joke. I love this shit. Oh my god, I can't take it. My stomach hurts. No kidding, after eating all that paper, my stomach hurt. I think I shit out a newspaper from that. Nobody could respond for roughly 5 minutes due to laughter. I did do stupid funny jokes like that. That's so funny. Next time I want in. Deal, Yugi. Okay, that was a terribly funny thing I did write. When I feel funny, I write funny stuff, and that was funny. Now, the last thing I want to go into is this brand new one I actually started writing. This one is a brand new one, and I could even let you guys look at it because I don't know if I will finish it or how far I'm going to be getting into it. Because this is a weird thing I came up with after watching a very, very short, 1 minute and something seconds video someone made on YouTube for, spirit shipping for Jaden and Jesse. It was a very interestingly done video, and it was an AMV, and I thought it kind of fit, and I was trying to make this as interesting as that, but this is no way is going to be as interesting. Let me go ahead and read it for you guys so you can understand. This is how my writing process goes, you guys. I tend to look at videos. If I get a video stuck in my head long enough, it could turn into a story. This is the story that came from my head after watching this AMV, literally titled Last Friday Night by Katy Perry. And this is what came out of it. It was morning, Saturday morning, which meant a party the night before, which meant trashed lawns, broken up houses, and drunk kids spewed about the place. Escapades and bad decisions make for regretful events, including pictures, bad memories, or even unplanned events. When such a night or such a party led a brunette to wake up in someone's bed with a pounding headache and no recollection the night before, Most of it was a blur in his head as he tried to clear his eyes to see the scene around him. He nearly fell out of bed in shock and surprise. Now, before I continue, I did show this to a few of my friends, and they did think that this was pretty decent and pretty good at the same time. So, you guys tell me what you think of it. Friday! Hey, what in the name of Duel Monsters happened? The scene in the room was unbelievable even to his eyes. Someone he knew was duct taped up to a chair and with post-it stickies on their glasses. He recognized the sky blue hair to be his best friend Cyrus, while the body laying beside the bed, shirt off to reveal a markered up body, was Chaz. Both males were out cold. The room was another story altogether. Torn posters, streamers, confetti, and glitter littered the room, along with empty or half-filled glasses. He realized closer to the door was another person he didn't recognize, but her body was surrounded by drinks and glasses that were left unfinished from the night before. The door opened to reveal a strung-out Atticus whose shirt was disheveled and his hair looked like a rat trap. He looked over at the brunette sitting up in bed. Jaden just realized his clothes weren't the ones he remembered wearing before. Hell, he'd even think he even had clothes like this. He wore a purple fishnet top with belt-buckle sleeves, tattered black jeans cut off at the knee with black lace boots. He looked like a male porn star in the outfit. He'd even wanted to know what his hair or face even looked like. Jaden, that was the best party of my life. You gotta do this again someday. Also, is that Jesse in your bed? Jaden's hair practically stood on end when he looked behind him to see a brunette in his bed, sound asleep, shirtless, his torso down, covered by the bedspread that was on Jaden's bed. I haven't the slightest idea who the hell this dude is. Jaden nervously looked under the blanket before letting out a shrill cry before continuing, or why he's naked in my bed. Jaden had to hold on. Atticus had to hold on to the door to keep himself standing as his body shook with laughter. I just realized, Jay, you got lipstick on. He covered his mouth as tears were in his eyes as he laughed. Jaden, not believing a single word of his upperclassmate, noticed that on the naked male in his bed, there was lipstick marks all over his neck, even a hickey in 3 places. Jaden stood up fast, going to his mirror, muttering, "You're shitting me." He gets to the mirror and nearly lets out another shrillish scream as he sees someone had dressed him up in makeup. Red eyeshadow, mascara, a light blush, and even a cherry red lipstick. He noticed the lipstick was smeared slightly, indicating that he'd been kissed by someone while wearing it. Who the hell did this to me? And why can't I remember shit? He held his head as the hangover he suffered from reared its ugly head as he raised his voice. His screams eventually woke up the duct-taped Cyrus behind him, who was scooting the chair across the floor, trying to get himself undone. Oomph. Oomph. I can't make those noises. Cyrus's muffled cries made Jaden turn from the mirror to his best friend as both him and Atticus, who rushes over, helps Jaden remove the duct tape from his best friend's face and the sticky notes from his glasses. The heck happened to me? The teal-haired boy looked between the two in confusion as the brunette shared a look. Not exactly sure how Cyrus ended up in position either. The only person they could assume pulled this was Hasselberry, considering he loved to pull pranks at parties. This is all I had wrote. I want you guys to tell me, is this worth finishing? Because I think this is something good. If I could keep the pace the same as it goes through and not screw this up, because this is going to be a long one shot if I do write this, because there's several things that go on in that Katy Perry song that I really want to do in this one shot, including Um, streaking, the streaking, the skinny dipping. Possibly not the the third bit of that song. I can't remember the word. It's like a fancy word for saying threesome, but I would not rate that part. I would skip over that part. But tell me if this would be a good story, because I'm gonna as they're going through shit, I was gonna make it where the house that they had the party in uh is basically Jaden's house. This is Jaden's house, and his parents luckily have cameras all over the place. So basically, it's going to be a recreation of footage from of the night in their somewhat lapsed memories of events that is going to key together what happened that night. So if you guys want me to continue this, let me know, because the this might be something good for me. This might be something good. I hope you guys like the insight into my stories and how I write, because this is just me, you guys. This is just me. I don't care if you guys watch this video or not. This is just me. I'm posting this for fun and enjoyment. Hope you guys like this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on whatever else I do next. See ya.